Okay, good evening, everybody. It's November 20th, 2025. Time is 6:00 p.m. and opening the meeting for the Conservation Commission here in the town of Deerfield. This meeting is being held in a hybrid fashion, or do we need, no, I get to the school committee. Hybrid fashion with the opportunity for both in-person attendance and remote participation. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. The meeting will be held in person at the main meeting room of Deerfield Municipal Offices. In accordance with Mass General Law 30A, anyone intending to record the meeting must identify themselves to the clerk and provide their name and address for the record. So the conservation meeting is called to order, and I think there's a school committee meeting you want to call yours to order as well.
You want to say if you can come to the microphone? I'll call a meeting of the Deerfield Elementary School Committee to order at 6:03.
Great, thank you. Okay, meeting guidelines. Please speak one at a time. Follow the Deerfield Code of Conduct, which is to be respectful, considerate, courteous, concise, and non-repetitive. And also for this meeting, two additional requirements is if you have questions, please address them to the chair, and I'll push them to the proper people up here. And second one, unless you're doing a presentation, please keep your comments to a maximum of 2 to 3 minutes. Greatly appreciated. So I need to identify the members present from the Conservation Commission.
Darren Damaris.
Kate Devlin here.
Ron Libby.
Peter Law. I do not see our fifth member, Ben, on the screen. So we have 4 members present, which constitute a quorum, so we can proceed. Do you need to do that with your school committee? Identify the members, or are you good? Okay. All right. So the first agenda item is to look at the minutes from October 30th, 2025. These were part of the meeting packets for the commissioners. Have you had a chance to review? Any discussions, any additions, revisions needed on the minutes as submitted? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. We could take a motion to accept the minutes of October 30th, 2025 as submitted.
Kate Devlin, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of October 30th, 2025 as written.
I'll second.
A second on the table. Any other discussion from the commissioners? Otherwise, take a quick roll call vote to accept the minutes or the motion on the in front of us.
Darren Damaris, aye.
Kate Devlin, aye.
John Libby, aye.
Peter Law, aye. That passes 4-0, so those minutes go in the record as received. Next agenda item is new business. We have no new business. We're doing a continuation of hearings this evening. And so we move to the first item, which is 21 Pleasant Street, DES NOI. This is a continuation of the hearing that we've started. This is pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act. A notice of intent filed by Darius Modesto for installation of new playground surface and equipment at DES on property at 21 Pleasant Street, identified in the assessor's records as map 159, lot 27. So we've had several meetings that we discussed that, and we did receive, which should be in everybody's packet, meeting packet, some new information from the engineer for the applicant, and I would look to getting some updates from the applicant and filling us in and navigating us through where we're at today. Yes.
Charles, you want to share your screen?
Sorry?
Want to share your screen?
Yes, I will.
Can do that.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Nieto. I'm a landscape architect with the Berkshire Design Group and one of the principals of Berkshire Design Group. And I think in the last package or the updates we wanted to talk about today was kind of the two options that we've been looking at. One option is instead of just using a recycled rubber in the lower surface of the play surface, it would be for the whole, basically the whole profile of that rubber surface to be non-recycled rubber. So it would be an EPDM, non-recycled rubber. Just to bring, I also wanted to just bring everybody back. This is kind of the overall plan. We are keeping the footprint to the same, basically the same footprint as actually the existing playground. So we're not expanding the size of what was there before. We're adding some play equipment to the same area. We are replacing the existing non-conforming for ADA purposes surface that is there with rubber surfacing. That requires, so that's what you're seeing here is the tot lot area, so the smaller kids area, and then the older kids area, the 5 to 12. This rubber surface requires an under drain to keep moisture away from the actual rubber so that it lasts for a long time. And that under drain will, in this option, would go out from underneath the ground and eventually with daylight right here outside of we have this retention pond that's next to the playground that was part of the original design in the 1990s for the school. It is considered wetlands because it was a retention pond. It was part of a drainage system, but it was done before 1995 or 96, which makes it so it becomes wetland. If it was done afterwards and maintained, it would just be retention pond. We are proposing a level dip spreader so that we don't provide, we don't produce a single point discharge. So we want to, that water that's coming from the under drain, we want it to be released and also spread out so it doesn't become one single point source discharge. And we're doing that outside of the resource of the wetland, or the retention pond in this case, but the area that was flagged as wetland within the retention pond. Also, I wanted to just, because we haven't, we talked about many things last time, but we didn't go through the fact that we also are providing an enhanced naturalized planting in areas that were used to be turf along the edge of the riparian zone as part of the redevelopment process that we are seeking, because it is work within the riparian zone that we're doing is redevelopment because it's something that had been already developed, but we are providing a 2-to-1, which was a request from, we had originally done 1-to-1, but there was a request to do 2-to-1. So we are proposing, and this is the area for the plantings, which is at the edge basically of the play fields along the, this is the playground here, kind of at the edge. And then we have the detention pond, the retention pond, and then the plantings that we're showing. So in all these concepts, we still have that. So I just wanted to make sure that we all, understood what the extent of the project was.
Yeah, Carlos, could I just ask two quick questions?
Yeah.
On the spreader outlet, which is great to see the spreader on that, that's right at surface level, or is that going
Yes.
into an underground piping? There's a discharge out of 4-inch PVC going down towards the Bloody Brook, but what's the entrance? Is this top level or is
This is a way above where the outlet of the retention pond that's existing is.
right?
Yeah.
So it's surface level, but at the bottom of the detention pond, higher? on the
Oh,
slope?
higher. So
On the slope?
Yep. Let me
Okay.
go back to if we.
Thank you. And that would be a new pipe that goes out to a spreader?
Yes, this is a
Okay.
new pipe that goes out to a spreader. This is the existing conditions plan. I mean, it's a little bit. I can zoom in a little bit. Go back.
Okay, no, that I was just trying to get the horizontal
Yep.
picture coming across.
Yep.
The second one, you mentioned the request for a 2-to-1 on the reclamation area. I think it was not a request per se, but looking for, initially you had a 1-to-1, but within the riverbank area would develop within the stipulation, it called for a 2-to-1.
Mhm, mhm.
So it wasn't a request, it was part of the regulation that we pointed out to you. So I just want that clarification.
And so that is the kind of the extent of the project in the sense of that what we were proposing originally was that, again, the recycled rubber. That recycled rubber also would have a profile that had that under drain instead of would have been right at the bottom, which is what you're seeing here. So you know, the surface was there's a rubber. Then we have a leveling course of gravel, then we have gravel, and then we would have had this pipe basically pretty much right at the bottom here. What we are proposing now, as in conjunction to doing the full EPDM non-recycled rubber, would be to elevate that pipe. And I'm gonna show you what right here. So what we are proposing is to elevate that pipe, not being at the bottom of the actual gravel, but be elevated by around 3 inches or exactly 3 inches above the gravel. And what that would do would be allow for some infiltration. The board had requested or had asked if we had done some test pits. We had said that we didn't do our normal test pits we would do for a parking lot or not, because those normally take a larger machine to do, and we didn't want to disrupt the playground. But as the board asked, then we went out. Actually, that was on the Sunday after the meeting, so that was the 30th of October, which we had a big storm that night. I went out on Sunday, and then I went with a post digger, which is not an official test pit. You know, we normally want to go 7 feet deep, and we want to make it a certain size, but trying to prevent disturbing the playground so that it keeps working for now. I went out and did a test pit about 4 feet deep, and which we included in the package. And we took some samples, took pictures of the whole process. We brought that back to our office. Our engineer looked at it, and he did a certification of the test pit, you know, saying that what type of material it was, which is a loamy sand. So being a loamy sand, then that's a material that actually is good for infiltration. Normally, when we are looking at projects like this, and if we don't have a test pit, we take into account the most conservative, which is, oh, we have a soil that won't infiltrate at all, and we design for that. But in this case, now that we know that we have a soil that can infiltrate, now we can bring that pipe up and then allow those 3 inches, which I mentioned in the language on the last letter, that would take into account the 2-year storm. And that is in general considered the 95% of all storms. So it's the majority of the storm events that we see during a year. I also sent a document today which has more of the math and information, engineering information about more detail of what I'm talking about. But that those 3 inches would allow for infiltration of the 2-year storm. Again, that would be the rain event that we see the most, 95%. And in general, that's considered the first flush. You know, it's that first, those storms, the more frequent storms are the ones that in general are considered to have most amount in parking lots, and in other situations are the ones that are pulling more contaminants or anything, suspended solids. Once you get larger events and more infrequent events, that first initial rain takes that out, and then the rest of the water just keeps, you know, it's already washed out. So we believe that that is an improvement to the design that we had before, and allowing for that infiltration. I think it's going to be a way to help so that under drain really is used in less frequently. The idea is that we will, you know, let the water fill up to the bottom. That allows for a certain amount of infiltration for that 2-year storm. And if we have a higher event than that, you know, a 10, 25, or 100-year storm, then yes, then our under drains would then take that water and drain it out. One other detail that, we sent that today, which is again with the more of the engineering side of what I had explained on the letter. if we follow also the EPA standards, which is a more strict standard, that it's not the standard that some communities have taken it in, that look at infiltration and depth of infiltration as also a means of taking out some contaminants. When we looked at that, and you have the table there, and I can go in more detail, it shows that with this amount of water that we're going to be infiltrating, we would be at 100% of removal of zinc and 100% removal of phosphorus. And that is determined by, when I say 100%, it's 100% of what's determined for different uses. So there's residential, there would be commercial if it was a parking lot, and there's a table right at the end. I can go a little bit further in detail on that. But that's what we are, in addition to handling the storm, which I think is going to be a great thing, because then we prevent as much water coming out of our surface into the resource. In addition to that, having that amount of capacity for infiltration also shows that there is a uptake of some of the contaminants or the heavy metal, which is one of the things, and zinc in particular, which I know was a concern after, the several documents you guys sent us and the conversation we had last time when we were here.
I just had to interrupt just quickly. It came in really late this afternoon. Did the commissioners have any chance to look at that? I thought I printed it out for everybody, but I don't seem to have it here.
I have a copy if you need it.
Up until now.
Yeah. So I'm not sure we can have the ability to apply it, but okay. So Sean, I'm not sure if you were able to see it.
I can, and I have a paper copy if you want it. I can definitely share with you, or I can, share it on the screen. And basically what we did, it was, I wanted to make sure that what I had said in the letter, there was some background, because we had done the numbers, but we didn't have
Was this
those numbers.
based on then the latest edition? I think it's revision 2 or volume 2 of the stormwater management plans
Yeah.
from the state.
Yes.
So the BPMs,
Mhm.
you did a
Yeah.
search on that, and
Yeah.
and-
All by the book, as they would say.
okay. So various BPMs would be applicable to metals uptake. But in this case, it's a 95 design of a detention center that there'd be no upgrades to where it's going into. Do you have any idea?
What happens in the detention,
in
in the retention pond
thing
next to it?
versus the requirements or the information for the BPMs in the updated stormwater manual?
As far, again, I'm a landscape architect. The civil engineer was the one who, put together the report. So if you wanted to go through the report, and if you have questions, I can definitely.
Yeah, I have the report, and it's really interesting. Maybe we should have found earlier, but if you look at the stormwater, there's various BPMs that have effective rates of removing metals, including zinc.
Best management
of
practice.
40 to 85%,
Yeah.
but they have to be designed as such.
Yes.
And so I don't think in your design you have any design to enhance the detention center where the material's going.
Well, it is considered the way that it was in the report that our engineer did. It is one of following the best management practices, and the last page talks about the later or more EPA standards that are more strict, and
Yeah.
talk about the removal of zinc. It's the last page.
Yeah, there's also different definitions of detention basins and BPMs, and I didn't know if he referenced which one he was.
I believe it was the infiltration trench, the one that he used at the back end. And of course, because this is not a, you can't define this. It's the underground of a playground, so it doesn't fit any of the definitions of a usual BPMs, which would be, underground detention basins. You have vegetated swales. You have, several different ones, but this is basically similar to an infiltration swale or basin.
Yeah, none of it comes up in the manual. No, I'm just curious, because there's some good information in there. If it was brought to us earlier, it could have been useful. There's 2 out of 58. Sediment forebear, which you don't have. And sediment forebays. Vegetative filter strips. Okay, okay. I know which ones you refer to. There's 2 of them in here that I like that. They are, they do show removals of some metals, and I don't see the exact percentage here, but the design would have to be as such. Okay, I just wanted to make sure you looked at all the BPMs, and
Yeah.
I think you answered that.
Yep.
Okay.
So that would be the first option. We put 2 options out into that last document that we sent. On the second option would be to try to get basically any of the storms that would hit this site all the way to the 100-year storm, capture it completely by the gravel layer underneath the surface, safety surface. In addition to that, then adding a pipe that's going to be larger to collect it and take all that water or that would be within the 10, all the way to the 100-year storm, and get it out of the area of the riparian zone or any of the buffer zone of the wetlands and direct it to a catch basin that would be at the street. Again, I think the first option is the ideal one. This is basically an option just to take the drainage that's coming out of here and take it out of the riparian zone, but it's more of again, a technicality. We're taking it away from the regulatory areas and putting it in a catch basin. We talked to DPW, which you had asked us, and we gave him as much information as he requested. And last Monday, he answered, gave us that he didn't seem like there was an issue to do that in regards to the system. But one thing that I wanted to be transparent, which I said in the letter, is that all the drainage along all the road here eventually makes it to the Bloody Brook. It's not like this is going to a treatment facility or anything of that effect. This water here in particular, the way it works is, and if I may grab that document quickly here. Here we go. And what we're seeing here, this is the plans from the 1990s that were actually shared by the board with us. And we did further look at how the drainage system worked. And also we did some work in the school in the past, which dealt with the kind of the plaza in the front. So we had looked at some of the infrastructure there. But right now, the catch basins where we're talking about, which is in the drop-off area, they all drain towards a structure right on Pleasant Street. And this is a control structure that also collects the water from the parking lot across the street. And all that water is basically sheet flow to a catch basin here, goes to another retention pond. That retention pond eventually, when it overflows, goes and basically eventually in the events where the retention pond overflows, we don't have the report. So we don't have the numbers of what this exactly means. We are missing like the details. But what it seems like is that everything eventually makes it to this control structure, which normally has baffles inside, and that will control if it gets to a certain level, it directs the water in a certain direction. And then there's an overflow pipe that keeps going along the west side of the school, which goes here, and then eventually goes under another retention pond, and eventually just outlets straight out to the Bloody Brook on the opposite side.
Okay.
So we wanted to make sure that we were not, I know that there was questions last time as to where does the water go? I just want to make sure that everybody was clear that it's
No.
basically going all the way around and eventually makes it back to the Bloody Brook.
No, it's very helpful, and thank you for that, because I did talk to Matt Morse at DPW today to see where he's at, and he's comfortable with the amount of material, but he had a question of where it goes. He didn't know what, if it was detention basin on the railroad side, if it was this one, if it was coming back. And so that answered that question. And were you able to also, he had another question on the 17th. Would you have any updated plans to do a deeper drainage system? And I think he wrote back, is I'm going to try to get that before the 20th, but I'm not sure. Were you able to?
Which it's basically the package that we've shared with you that
Okay.
shows the 3 inches that we've elevated the pipe so that now we have the 3 inches for infiltration.
Okay, so when I talked to Matthew earlier today, he wasn't sure, so
Mhm.
just clarify that, and so that other members of the commission know. So did you look then at if the water's coming down through, if we're taking the water out of the playground underneath the structure, which is in the resource area, we're pumping it back out to Pleasant Street, we're turning it back around, taking it back down to the detention pond on the west-hand side, and then into the Bloody Brook discharge.
Mhm.
So is that a continuous hydrologic connection?
It goes actually first, more than likely on the first events, it goes back to the actual parking lot because there's a retention pond there. When a larger storm comes in, then that overflows and then goes back. But yes, it's
it's a-
connected to the same system.
So it's not a separation of the resource area. It's just a kind of extension in
Mhm.
a roundabout way of what you're taking from the resource area, moving up outside of the resource area and bringing back to the same spot.
Yeah,
So
because
that's the logic connections there.
because all the water
Yeah.
basically on Pleasant Street leads to
Okay.
all the other catch basins go all the east side
Okay,
and eventually makes it to the overpass or a little bridge that's there and outlets there.
Yeah.
So there's no other place where this water would go.
yeah. So it's important, I think, when you look at that option, it sounds like we're pumping it away.
Gravity.
But it's going to come back around.
It doesn't-
It's a gravity.
It's a
feed.
gravity
It's
system.
not a pump, sorry. But it's going to come back around to the starting area, which is going to be the same as in option one's going to go
Exactly.
to the Bloody Brook as well. I just clarification for,
Yep, that's why I wanted to be completely transparent
Yeah.
on that. The only thing we're doing here is taking it out of the point discharge itself. It's taken out completely out of the riparian zone or the buffer zone, so it's outside of jurisdiction, but it does go into the same system.
but it may be within jurisdiction if it's a continuous hydrologic connection.
Yeah,
Because
but it's a
you're working within the resource area, moving some of that resource out and bringing it back to it.
completely understand.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're putting the actual outlet outside of the resource. That's what we
Yeah,
we
that's
tried.
kind of yeah,
Yeah.
a little nuance to this one, but just want everybody to understand, it's coming back to the same place.
Yeah. I prefer the first option,
Yeah.
to
so
be
the-
honest, because
The
it
first
basically
option was EDPM all the way down through without, the option doesn't include piping it out.
exactly.
It's just going into the catch basin
It's going into the
to the east.
retention pond that's right
yeah,
next to us.
to the east of it. and
With
then-
with that level of spreader, so to prevent a point source discharge.
And the restoration area of the plantings is outside of that detention area, right?
Yes, yes, yeah,
Okay.
because that
So-
area, that detention pond, it's still a retention pond, so it needs to be maintained. If it was all completely outgrown,
Sure.
then it would
Yeah,
not
that-
work
yeah,
as a
right.
retention pond.
Then it would be after you say, why are you doing? You got
Yeah.
trees in the middle of it, right? But you haven't brought designs within the updates of adding any type of material there for a BPM type of thing, like a rain garden type of there, or anything of that nature that would have potential biological uptake of metal?
No.
No.
What the
So it's just
BPM that
as
we used
is.
is just the infiltration.
Okay. Clarification. Thank you.
Can I add something? From the,
And I should have mentioned up here on the front table is Amy Hahn, who works for the town, and Tim Eves Coles, who's our conservation agent. Should have introduced them.
just from the research I found, for heavy metals such as zinc, they don't have significant biological uptake. So biological measures aren't really effective for,
Yeah, I
for
think
that
some of the
particular-
BMPs, it was a lower percentage of potential uptake and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
probably
it's,
more what
it's
the
more
organic-
mechanical focused for
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
That's my,
Also, they seem to
Understanding
be
the background, too.
less moving. You know, they move less heavy metal. I mean, I think that defines a little bit. But once they get incorporated, they have less movement in through.
Yeah.
That's correct. The research showed that heavy metals have low to moderate mobility.
Thank you. Okay, those are basically what we're asked to look at, the two options, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. No other real changes to the NOI. We have not received a revised NOI at all. It's just the communication of the options. So that's what we would have to consider. Have to consider what we'd want to do with the NOI as submitted, along with all the comments and options submitted by
Mhm.
email and letter along the way, and how that get incorporated.
Yep.
So we can talk on that, but then many times in later this evening on another project, they brought us a revised NOI to include all the plannings for what has been requested, so that we don't have to rewrite the whole thing and rewrite it and put all the order conditions together from our side and then go back and forth. So any plans if we went one way or the other to do any further updates of the NOI?
I mean,
or-
if we would love to close tonight, so we can provide anything you want, but if we are closing tonight or trying to close tonight, I think we don't want to keep coming back as
Yeah.
next time. So
Well, I think
Um,
that, and thank you so much. There's so much information there. And as both we have all agreed to, that we're dealing with a product that nobody really has done a lot of study on. And even when you said the binder type of thing, what was that, a polyurethane binder? What happens with that? If you look at different studies on different materials with polyurethane breaks down in 2 years. So it's not, but
and
is
then
it
there-
applicable to this?
There's the other study that says that recycled rubber with polyurethane around it actually is very good.
Yeah. But then
So they,
question
it's
that-
both sides.
I know it's really hard for us as volunteers to work through some of this stuff.
I would love it if we would have found somebody who took a playground
Yeah.
and did a long-term study, take the under drain and start taking samples of the under drain of an actual playground
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the surface and just do a long-term study. And then I
Right.
think that would be to me, seemed the most logical way, but everybody's doing these studies where they take a little piece of something and then
Yeah.
they, dissolve it and they're looking at
We
it
need to
very,
find a grad student, a PhD student to get a research project and.
I would
put a
love it.
paper.
I
But-
would love to be that grad student right now instead of, but I, unfortunately, I'm not anymore.
Yeah, but it does leave us of trying to decide whether the material in the ground, we don't have leachable studies, we have some indication, we ask for no type of encapsulation, there's no enhancements to the detention areas. We did ask for the groundwater and soil studies, which is basically a fundamental request for any work like this. That was declined. He said he declined to do that because he didn't want to bring I think the writing was something of they didn't want to bring the heavy equipment out there.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't do a full study. So we have and thank you for doing the one soil boring
Mhm.
test bit to 4 feet. I'm amazed there was no groundwater at 4 feet. But
So it's interesting enough, when you look at the retention pond, this area right here is, the outlet is at 197, I believe, and this is like a 204, I believe, or something like that. So if I went down, there is, even after that storm, there was some little bit of standing water right at the bottom of the corner here.
Yeah.
But that is still lower than the 4 feet under the playground
Then
because it drops kind of.
207.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I could,
yeah.
when I was out there, it made sense. I looked
Yeah.
at the pond and I said,
And I think when you did the afterward soil study, they said it was mostly fill in sandy loam. So it's
Yeah.
all fill material that's on top of what was there naturally. So it makes sense that the groundwater's not permeating up through there.
yeah.
But I was so surprised at that. But we don't have that information, and that was a request.
Oh,
which is kind of
well, we
fundamental.
put it a test pit on the back end. I mean,
A test bit, though, you acknowledge to start with,
we didn't
it-
do a 7.
we didn't do,
No, for sure. We
we
did
didn't
not.
do the soil and water flow study, which would normally be brought to us in these kind of projects
Well,
right
it-
from the start.
There is some analysis again on the infiltration on the, on the,
Yep, there is
on the
some.
bottom,
Yeah.
and we looked at actually what would happen with the water in general that went into this area
Right.
and went into the front if we needed to take it down.
Right.
So we did some calculations, but yeah, we didn't do an overall.
You
hydrological
understand
study.
that the overall, the soil study and the seasonal high water
Mhm, mhm,
rate
yeah.
and, that's kind of kind of the fundamental information that we look at in a lot of projects on.
Yep, yep.
So we're kind of, requested that information and, just didn't come through. So we're kind of a little shorthanded on that. But anyways, I think, after all this time, I'm not sure we're going to get much more information from one side or
Yeah, I
from,
mean,
back and forth. Commissioners, do you have any other comments or any comments from the public? Anybody that school committee want to speak before we made, I want to talk to the commissioner to see if we think we want to close the hearing and vote on one thing or another. But if there's public comments, I would certainly take those first.
I just feel like I have to comment on, clearly an educating process for me as well. I do spend my days looking at regulations, policies, handbooks, and in that, I make discretionary calls on a daily basis that affect people's lives and in educational futures. And when I look at this project, I see all the questions you're asking and the impacts that has. But I also see a lot of discretion on whether or not the environmental impact of this project truly is an environmental impact. And there's a judgment call in there. And there isn't the research that says, and it feels like in this research studies, there's been a lot of, back and forth and the emails about the research, where we got the research, what the research is about. This is, we have a town that has private schools that have multiple rubber surfaces that have been approved, and that water is going into our resources. And I just pointing that out, that it feels like I feel like in this process that there's been like, we had to prove that it's not causing an environmental. And in order to do that, someone had to prove that either it is, but there's no information. So it kind of, I felt like we're in a spot where we're trying to prove something where there's no evidence to prove it. So the judgment does go back to your discretion. And I just want the community to understand that this is the project itself is about bettering the lives of community members in your community. We're talking about creating a ADA compliant playground where all children have access. And I know that I know how it comes out, and I know there's a other side of the environmental impact, but we're not putting a Michelin plant in. We're upgrading a playground that already has rubber surface, and we're removing that bad surface, and we're creating a better filtrating surface with better plantings around it, and an impact that is an improvement. Whether it is under the regulations, in the definition of it, that's for you folks to decide. But you do know it's an improvement. And so I just ask, when you go through and you look at where is your discretion in this, this is a community project. It is the betterment, again, I was just going to say it again, for children to all have access to this playground. The cost of this project is getting higher and higher, which is something, you are a municipal board, it should be a concern. It's not your decision, it's going to drive your decision, but it is, I am trying to, all these studies where I said, we can't do all the things that you're asking for. I'm asking you to make best judgment with the information we can provide. And if you can't make that judgment because a 7-foot test pit was going to make all the difference in the world, then I guess we should have done that. But I have to make decisions where this project is going to get priced out of doability or unreasonable amount on our taxpayers. And so, I just, there's been some tension on this, but it has to do with resources. And I know you'll get natural. I'm looking at money resources and how much I can apply to a playground. If I could just pick this playground up and put it on the other side of the school, I would. But that's cost prohibitive. I know we want to use a different surface. If there was a better surface out there, I'd pick that up and use that as well. But there just isn't. And so, so I just ask that, I understand that, again, going back to the other line about, I understand that you have interpretation discretion of a lot of these different policies. And I asked you to consider that the whole thing and not just what may or may not have been missing or may not, in hindsight, we would have done this whole thing differently, but that's not what we're here today. So I do thank you for all your time. And I know we had to come out many times, but you also had to hear us many times. And I do appreciate you, putting in all the work on your end of this as well. So thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. Thanks for the comments. Anything else, public? Ask the commissioner, do you think you've got enough information to close out the hearing? Because when we close out the hearing, there'll be no additional materials being taken in that could be presented. So do you think you're in a place where you have information that you can make decisions on? And the decisions on would be, it's really hard to explain the decision because the NOI that was submitted, there's so many potential alterations to it and options. There's 2 new options tonight, and they're not articulated in a revised NOI. We could ask that the consultant provide a NOI with something that we'd agree to, but otherwise we're going to have to write it up pretty much ourselves. But those are the decisions. The NOI that's been brought in front of us, with taking into effect the comments and discussions over the last 4 or 5 months, and emails and so forth that we would have to try to put together.
If I may, I don't know if I can.
Yeah, I haven't closed it yet, so go ahead.
I think it's spelled out on the last letter that we sent you, the option. It's basically the same on the horizontal, it's the same design. We just have changed what type of surface it is instead of the recycled rubber. So on the last letter that we sent you, which was Monday, there is 2 options. The first option would be the one that I think it's the ideal, which is, again, not using fully non-recycled rubber all the way through, even though it's more expensive than if we use the recycled rubber. And then elevating that pipe, the drainage pipe, so that we can have an area underneath that would help for infiltration. And if the board feels like they're going to approve and you need me to put together a updated NOI, I can do that. It's not like we are refusing to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay.
But we would like to just not have to bring other options or anything like that. If that's the option that you think you're going to approve, then I can definitely put together the paperwork that you need.
And just to clarify for the commission members, that was a letter to the Conservation Commission dated November 17th, 2025 from Berkshire Design Group, signed off by Carlos. And it stated the 2 options. That was the correspondence that's in discussion. So just wanted that on the record.
That's the letter that came today, though.
No,
No.
that's the
Oh,
one
it's the- oh, okay.
that was the one on Monday, the 17th.
Okay,
What are we on
yeah.
today? We're all the
We're on the
20th today.
20th,
That I believe is in the packet and we've seen it before. So if the commissioners think we need more information, we can certainly request. If you think you're ready to close the meeting and look at a motion one way or the other to accept or deny the NOI with all the modifications that we've talked about, especially based on the November 17th, 2025 letter of options versus option 1 and option 2. And as we once we close the hearing, the commission will have time to discuss, which I won't take any additional input in, but we can discuss a little bit on the options at that point as well before any motion be made. But I just want to know if we're ready to close out the hearing and move to some type of motion one way or another.
I have no further questions. I have all the information.
So Darren is Damaris is saying that he's got enough information. Sean?
If, if voting without a revised NOI is allowed, then I'm fine with voting tonight. It would be a lot easier to have the revised NOI in hand, and then we could approve that.
That would be easier. We still haven't been able to have a discussion about options of sorts. So what would a revised NOI, if we did move forward with a motion to accept one option or the other, the NOI could be revised to reflect that, and we accept that on the next meeting. Or if not, the NOI would have to be revised, updated to include the two different options, and then we could vote on one or two options on the next round. Next meeting is in 4 weeks. So we're kind of in a tough spot. I understand it.
And I want to say, and the applicant is requesting to close, but we would like to close tonight. We don't want to come
Yeah.
back for another.
Yeah, I think you're good giving us information. We just need to know whether we've got enough that we think you can do. Okay.
I mean, I appreciate all of the information that you've put together and that you've submitted, and I hear you when you talk about the cost. I guess I'm a little disappointed that the alternatives were dismissed as not being usable. With wood chips can be ADA compliant with maintenance and would cost less. So if cost is a real pressure point, that I wish I had seen more information, but you dismissed that and didn't present that.
We
because-
presented on the first pack
I know, but
a
but
study.
you
that-
said it
no,
wasn't, you said it was the maintenance.
Well,
was
not,
too
not
cost-
just us, not just us. There's a study from the University of Indiana that are our ADA experts, and they classified all these surfaces. And they did say that no surface is completely perfect,
I get
but
that.
they basically said that the wood chip is the one that loses its ADA and its fall height regulation sooner than any of the other ones.
But it doesn't mean it's not compliant.
Yes, and the
So
cost,
it's-
one of the other things that they talk about there is that the cost involved with having to maintain it the way that it keeps that ADA compliance, it would be then a very long-term cost. We did want to provide that because I agree with you. I would prefer using wood chip if it was truly ADA compliant, especially in a public playground. Especially for a school. But the reality is that with the amount of use that it gets used and the limited funds for actually coming in and constantly having to, maintain it. And when we say maintain it, literally it needs to be raked, wet, and compacted with a plate compactor about every month or two. It's not just, a very quick, thing to do.
Okay.
But anyway.
I appreciate that, but you don't want to submit a new NOI with any of you've already told us that you didn't feel all the other options were
Yeah.
viable. So we're not going to see a new NOI with that. So what you're saying is that this is the NOI with the two options, one or the other. That's where we're at,
Yes,
right?
No,
Okay.
that's completely true.
So I
yeah.
think that's,
But I just want, that's it.
I just have a procedural question. So does a revised NOI, is that a new hearing or is that a continuation of this hearing? Do you know?
if we would be voting on a revised NOI, we do a continuation on it.
Okay.
If we voted on some type of motion to either accept or deny the NOI as submitted, but if you went to the accept side, it'd be the NOI is submitted that needs to be updated and revised per discussions and per the option that was chosen. And then then I don't think it requires a new hearing. I think we can just take that in as long as they met the conditions that we put together tonight, which if we did that, it's going to take a long time to condition it. So it's what Sean is saying is going to be cleaner to do one. It's just going to take them more time. And they want to wrap it up.
Could,
Yeah.
could you do a preliminary approval on the condition of the updated MOI to meet the records of this meeting? I mean, the meeting is recorded. It's not like we're going to go around and change back and say we're putting in an airport.
Right.
You know, so like you could do a preliminary. I guess the concern is on our end is that if we don't know, there's been no straw votes, or we have no idea where you're leaning right now. And for us to come back 4 weeks later, just to hear no, when you're everybody,
Yeah.
or just to hear, you know, that kind of thing is, you know, we have to.
Yeah.
I got to put other things into motion, right?
Sure.
And so if you can do a preliminary, and then we will present you new NOI, you can vote it formally at the next meeting. Then, you know, that based on what with the
Does-
conversation that happened tonight, that would.
Does that work, Amy? If we did a
Yeah, what I would
Think
say
we
is
could-
we would need to keep the hearing open. If we close the hearing now, we would have to renotice it, et cetera, et cetera.
right,
If we keep this hearing open, I think you guys can deliberate for a bit and see how you feel about the idea of a revised.
we can deliberate on our own without.
You can,
input.
you can certainly discuss and ask questions. The hearing is still open. That means you can still get new information. Once you close the hearing, you can't take in any new information. So you wouldn't be able to take in a revised NOI.
Post it and reopen it. Yeah.
But I think maybe to Darius's point, you can discuss amongst yourselves, see how you feel about the idea of when receiving a revised NOI with the options, and if you think if the options discussed tonight, you would be able to vote yes on that. I mean, I think you can talk about that now without
Okay.
closing.
So we can talk about it as a commission without
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you can, yes.
any public meeting laws and regs and rules. So thank you, Amy. As such, then I would just close out the public comment part of this hearing and open it up to commissioner discussion. So basically what we're looking at is the NOI submitted, and I have it here some that I think the date was back in August maybe, when it was first thing. There's no date on it. So the NOI is submitted based on all the information we received to date, especially on the November 18th, was that the date? 17th letter outlining the options that the applicant would like to proceed with, one or the other. So the discussion for the commissioners in option one is to use EDPM all the way through. It does increase cost. It does not change where the discharge would go. It'll go into that basin just to the east of it. There is a spreader proposed. Will slow down some. The detention basin probably is not designed for any biological uptake, even if it was a low percentage. And then there's a 4-inch PVC pipe that was actually cleaned by DPW last spring, and it's flowing pretty well, but that'll go directly to the Bloody Brook. The only change in that one that I read is just increasing the level of the base of the pipe 3 inches above to allow for the water conditions going in there. And we did, the engineer Carlos did mention the first flush. Between the commission and the first flush, it makes sense coming off a roadway, but this is going to be water that's situated underground. So it's going to go down, percolate, and then move laterally to the side. So the first flush is what comes in, but it's the material in that whole layer that's going to be affected if there's any leaching. So the first flush is kind of it's a different argument because it's going to come to almost a equilibrium underneath of the exchange of any materials to the water column as it gradually goes out. And you can see in some of their stormwater design flow, it takes X amount of time for the waters to disperse. So that's in my thought about the option one. Any other comments about option one? We do know from a lot of the research that, and we've been told that it's going to be bound by a polyurethane. And there's some research this way, some research that way. But in general, polyurethane generally breaks down somewhat readily in the environment, especially under UV and temperature conditions. And so how long that binding lasts around the areas is a question as well. So more, and then option two would be for use of the recycled tire material, increase the bottom to 24 inches, not make a change in the initial design with EPDM on the top, the rubber underneath, just increase the bottom to help maintain up to a 100-year flood for water flow. Overflow then goes by gravity to Pleasant Street storm basins. They go to some type of catch basin. We can't, and the superintendent of DPW doesn't know exactly what's in there either. It says it's going to take a few months to hear back from the state on that, just what the separator is in there. And then it comes back down via pipe on the overflow, goes below the west side detention pond, and into the Bloody Brook. So you're taking water that comes out of there, you're moving it someplace else, but we're going to bring it back to almost the same place it started. So those are the two options which I read through. I don't know if anybody else had different comments or different explanations of the options. Anything that is missing or missed? So just going back to option one with uses of the EDPM, it's good to know that it's fully ADA compliant and so forth. The maintenance, there would be some maintenance to it. I believe that's going to be subcontracted out as on need basis, for what I read. But the EDPM, if you look at other leaching studies of recycled tires, it takes, the only thing that is a concern is that we found in our research, but as we both agree that the research is sketchy, but is zinc. Zinc is a fairly acute hazard to aquatic ecosystems, especially in the macroinvertebrate level and in the larvae, pupae, and in that part of the ecosystem, which is the basis for much of the other ecosystem there. So there's still zinc potential. We can't tell you what the potential is of what might come out. But it takes, the EDPM takes away a lot of the other compounds of concerns, which are the cadmiums, the chromes, some of the organics, so forth and so on. So it does answer, it's a better answer for all but zinc by use of the EDPM. So that's kind of the concern with that we have to consider. What do we know or not know about what may leach out of that material, what may be captured in the basin, what may end up in the Bloody Brook relative to zinc. And given that there's no studies on this particular materials and how it was put together, we're just kind of running blind on that one, and just you know, we got a lot of good information from both sides of what may or may not occur, but there's no specifics to it. So, any further discussions? Oh, Amy, you have a point to clear?
I think Tim has looked at some of the options that we have. I'll let him describe for procedurally.
Oh, good.
I think
Procedure-
there's some. good-
Procedurally is good.
So a couple possible approaches I'm seeing here, you know, if you were to move forward with this would be to potentially, you know, approve with special conditions explicitly describing the modifications. So that would be approving the original plan, but with the modifications as conditions. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other option would be kind of similar, just requiring like revised plans, you know, like basically requiring the revisions as a condition prior to starting work. So stamped revised plans, something like that.
As a condition,
Yeah,
so that
Yeah.
would go back to the first option that you mentioned.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just whether to require a revision to the plans as a condition or whether to approve right now with have the conditions be describing the specific modifications, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, we would need to have the revisions describe the specifics.
Yes.
I think maybe Tim, that would be a good use of Tim's time.
Yeah, and we can help work. Yeah, we can, you know, work together with and putting that together. And just to note, I did talk with DEP again today on this. Just to be everybody knows and straight out, but and their opinion was just make the engineer do it. You know, it should have been here to begin with, but they basically said you can we can either approve it or we can deny it on lack of information so far. So I just want to let you know what I heard from the DEP today as well. That basically the soils and seasonal high water plan was a fundamental criteria, in that we had requested specific info, we didn't get it, so we can deny for lack of information or relative to any specific compliance status. So those are the other options too. Just to be, I think we cover all options, so we can do it, approve with special conditions, one option or the other, and make one of the special conditions being a revised plan as an engineer stamp revised plan. That would have to be approved again by us. Is that how it reads, or no?
No, I think you can require a stamped
Yeah.
approved plan of what has been discussed.
Yeah,
But I
right.
don't think, you know, once it's closed, once you voted, you voted. So
Yeah.
you wouldn't be voting again on the plan.
So then we would close the meeting and then,
Once you voted on it, approve or not approve, it's, you can't then vote again.
right.
So you would be voting on the plans that have been with a new stamped set of plans that are what has been described, for what has been described
Right.
in this meeting.
And that, you know, like every other condition, that would be required for COCs then.
Yeah,
You know.
right. But we can continue discussing whether we favor option 1 or 2, right? Yeah. So any thoughts between the commissioners on 1 or 2, if we commission it? Or if those are the two options, 1 or 2, and if not, we can also not even go that course and just deny it or approve it as is.
I prefer option 1.
That's the EDPM.
Yep.
Yeah. Sean?
I would vote to approve option 1.
those are the options, I would lean toward option one, the EDPM as well. But then there's also the other part of it is if we don't think that option meets the requirements, we can deny, we can take a vote on denying the NOI as submitted, even with information. Does anybody want to take a look at that, or should we move ahead with trying to make a approve with special conditions on the with the EDP option one EDPM in place? Okay, I know you're thinking a lot of it.
I've got alphabet soup in my head, and EDPM is referring to the rubberized surface.
Yeah. Ethyl da 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 da. And so that would negate the use of any recycled rubber material. Still has a potential, unknown potential issue of zinc leaching.
I mean, option one seems like the lesser of two evils, so to speak. Both contain zinc. But the virgin, the EPDM, doesn't have the additional chemicals, the additives for manufacturing, the things that, the pollutants with it. And to have that contained, so to speak, I just think that's the better option. I just feel like that's better because we're moving the water, we're moving the runoff for option two, like we said.
Yeah.
It's going back into the brook.
Yeah.
In terms of the movement of water, option one sounds better.
Yeah,
Because option two is just moving it from one place to another and it still ends
Right.
up in the same place.
right.
But with the EDPM, I think with the polyurethane, it does break down when heated up, and playground surfaces are susceptible to high heat. Just from the sun shining, they get hot, and that's a known, that's known. It doesn't matter what the surface is. If it's rubberized, it'll heat up.
Can I ask a question to Carlos, or are we get out of protocol on it?
That's why you haven't
That's
closed the
protocol.
hearing, so you can ask.
Is
Yeah,
the EDPM, does that utilize polyurethane binder, or is that the recycled tire material? that is-
Both use
both use
polyurethane
it.
binder. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
So then we run into the same problem of things breaking down and leaching through. So if I go with my conscience, I can't vote for it.
Yeah.
Because it.
And so then you could take a motion to deny the entire NOI, and then we could vote on that.
Yeah, you need to, if you guys are not gonna do a revised, if you're not waiting till next month to do a revised, then you need to close the hearing before you vote to approve or
Right.
deny.
But there's options on voting too, right? We can vote on a motion, but it may not pass. Can we vote on a second motion? So if a motion to, do we have to have one motion to say either option one or two, then we prefer option one, or a motion to, on to deny?
If somebody has a motion for something, if a motion is made and the vote is to deny, somebody can make a different motion, I think you could probably even make the same motion again and after discussion and vote again.
Right. It's okay, you could make a motion to deny the NOI completely, and then we can discuss it and see if we wanted to, or see if anyone wants to second it, and then we can discuss it, or,
But you need to close the hearing first.
yeah. So, are we at the point where we want to close it out? And technically, we could open it up again if we reposted it, if need be. Okay.
You know, or the applicant can apply, you said the applicant can apply to the DEP.
Yeah.
For,
Okay. Apologize for me not being on top of all the, was it Robert's rules of meetings and stuff? Everything, but, okay, then I guess I would, go ahead and, close the meeting, close the hearing. So I take a motion to close the hearing and then we can, look at taking votes on, what we want to do next. Oh, Sean, before I do.
If we close the hearing, can we still receive a revised NOI with the EDPM option one?
no, no, once it's closed, you can't receive any new information.
So then it's an up and down vote on the NOI as presented.
Yes, and it's up to you, you know, that
So,
it's staying open for a revised NOI is also an option.
in what time frame, Carlos, could you do a revised NOI?
Again, I think, I mean, just a question. Everybody's asking questions, so I'll ask my question. Could you close and the board could have a condition that I submit a set of plans?
Yes.
Because I could submit then, if you have a condition that says that you want me to submit a set of plans with option one, I can then submit a full set of plans with option one.
But that can't be discussed further. Because we've already closed the hearing. We'd have to open up a new hearing, wouldn't we?
It would have to be the NOI with all of the conditions that we've discussed and just in order.
And I would just add, I mean, I can give you all the information as for if you ask us a condition.
Yeah, I mean, you have option one, I guess, and then you would just be requesting plans that show option one in plans, which you don't have now. I mean, or, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That the condition of the approval would be that they are required to submit signed and stamped plans that would become incorporated as part of the order of conditions
After the hearing's closed or continue the hearing, to Sean's point.
after the hearing's closed. Is that your understanding, Tim? We can, you would close the hearing. You would condition the approval on the receipt of a set of signed and stamped plans for the option that you have chosen.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. It would have to be closed and it would just be one of the conditions.
Sean, any thoughts on that? Could you hear that?
I could hear it all. I think that's the path we should go. It's interesting, and I can empathize with Kate. If if we do this, I'm not sure how the committee lies. I think it might be 2-2. So, you know, without Ben Byrne here to be our tiebreaker, I just mentioned that, you know, I would approve option one as a reduction in pollutant source for Bloody Brook. And then with revised options, I would approve right to option one.
I'm so confused. Sorry. So we close it, then we can't address Kate's concern about not voting. She could vote, somebody could vote against the conditions or no?
Somebody can make a motion to approve with the conditions discussed, and that would include the submission of plans for option one. Somebody can vote to amend that motion before you vote on it. But once you've made a final vote, then we cannot, I mean, the vote would be to include new stamped plans. That's for information we basically already have. I mean, they've told us what option one is. They would just be making it concrete. But you can't accept new information, which I think would be additional,
All right.
additional information that I don't know. Kate, are you seeking additional information?
I think the information that we've got is there.
Yeah.
And we've discussed the fact that the playground surfaces do heat up and polyurethane does break down. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
mean, you guys can
I don't
vote
know how to- I
and
don't know if
see what
new
the vote is.
information would help at
Right.
this point,
So I think that we
but
just
it's,
have to close out and vote on whatever, motion comes up, an option, and as Sean said, somebody can vote for or against. Okay, so I'm gonna close the hearing. So the hearing's closed on that, and then we can move to the commissioners only.
I believe you need to vote to close the hearing.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I'll take a motion to close the hearing. The motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Okay, that'll work. We'll take a vote to accept the motion to close the hearing on 21. What's the street? It's right in front of me.
Pleasant.
Pleasant Street, NOI. And we'll vote on that.
Darren Damaris, aye.
John Libby, aye.
Kate Devlin, aye.
Pete Lai. Okay, hearing is officially closed. And then we can go to potentially accepting motions on the next step that we would vote on. And as for discussion, then we talked about option one, but we can have a lot of stipulations with that. So somebody want to try to put together a motion for consideration?
Sean Libby, I'll make a motion to accept the 21 Pleasant Street notice of intent filed by Darius Modesto for DES playground improvement, map 159 lot 27, on condition of receiving a signed and stamped plan with revision inclusions for plans to include option number 1 as discussed in tonight's meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion on the table. Open up for discussion, but to paraphrase, it would be to accept the NOI with all conditions and comments related in acknowledging the desire to go with option 1 as presented in the November 17th letter. Any other discussion from the commissioners? Seeing none, hearing none, then I take a vote to accept the motion or a vote on the motion on the table at this point.
John Libby, aye.
Darren Damaris, aye.
Kate Devlin, no.
Pete Law, aye. So that motion passes 3-1 with that option, and we will get you information on what we will need back for the revised NOI. I'll have Tim Eve Coles, the conservation agent, work with you on that, putting it together. And it's going to include a lot of conditions that we talked about, and before we're done, and also the revised plan as a condition with environmentally stamped plans. So hopefully we can get that done. We got a holiday next week, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks. That work, that type of time frame.
Yeah. For us, that option, the plan is basically done. It's just adding, we have the detail of the
Mhm.
material and how the pipe is, and that detail exists already. So it's fairly simple for us to put it together. So,
Okay.
so we should be able to, at least the plan and having signed,
Then
I don't
good.
think it's going to be an issue.
Yep, okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move on from there.
Do you want to close the school committee meeting before you leave?
We do have other business on the agenda tonight. Sorry about that, folks. We've been dealing with this since sometime this summer. Let me get back to the agenda. Next on the agenda is continuation of the hearing for 355 Greenfield Road, NOI. Notice of intent filed by Bob O'Bear for construction of a single-family home with associated site work in the buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands on property at 355 Greenfield Road, identified in the assessor's records as map 95, lot 3.1.
Good evening.
Go ahead. She's right there in front of me. All set to go. What do we got for the updates?
We submitted a revised site plan indicating the changes you'd requested, and the wetlands consultant forwarded a letter referencing the setback and the wetlands plantings as requested.
Yeah, everybody seen the plans? Update. I got the full sheets here, so I think everything was addressed. Still a little hard to figure out his plans, his schematic, to find everything we were looking for, but I think I made it through. So we do have a double layer erosion control in place, 10-foot wetland setback limit of work, if you agreed to. What's the difference, if you would, a 10-foot wetland setback limit of work versus a 10-foot side yard setback?
I believe the side yard setback refers to the zoning requirements.
Okay, thank you. And just on there, when we get to the point, it does note use of hay bales and wattles. No hay, it's gotta be straw, okay?
Yes, straw.
That'll be in any conditions that we'll give you. There was plantings that was based. Did everybody read the plantings, especially Sean, you know the stuff, and Tim, but black chokeberry, silky dogwood, elderberry, 20 shrubs in total. And where would that be located?
I believe that would be within the 10-foot setback area.
On the western
The-
side.
the
right
western
next to-
side of
going
the
down to the
slope.
wetland area. Okay. Any questions from the commissioners on any of the plantings? Okay. There was a question last time, and I will open up to the public. I'm not sure if that person's here. But there's the swale area on the southern side of your property versus the next property. There's a little swale. You can see some wetland vegetation going down through there. There was some current concerns that there's been increased water flow in that area.
Well, that would just be surface water coming from the neighbor's property. That's maybe no longer infiltrating our property because of the fill that's been brought in. But that area will be generally sloped towards the wetlands. So any runoff or surface water would be contained and directed back towards the wetland area.
And that was gonna be my question. What's the slope of that swale? It's gonna be, do you know what the degree of slope is going back?
I believe that's outside of the wetland area, so
Right.
it hasn't really been determined yet, but
Okay.
it would
Uh,
be a simple slope based on the
Yeah.
topography of the site.
And any thought of, I know with the fill, you're gonna put grass vegetation on top. That type of fill is going to be pretty permeable. The water should go through that. But any thought of sloping the entire project to the north to keep water out of any more infiltration of water into the swale if there was sheet flowing coming off of your property?
Yeah, I believe that the general slope of the property will be towards the rear. So
Towards the rear, towards the wetland and not toward the north.
I believe so. I mean, the general property is pretty flat and there's a decent perk rate there. The fill that's been brought in is mostly clean sandy fill. So I do expect most, water from the site to infiltrate into the ground.
So if, but it's not on plans here, most of this is just a septic plan. So I didn't see the slope on that. But if we put it in the order condition that, if we get to that point, that the slope, general slope, it needs to be, engineered to, either go to the wetlands or the northern side. Something
Yeah,
you
that-
could work, okay.
That would be accurate. I mean, we're gonna slope the site away from the house, so that way there's no water infiltrating into the basement. There'll
We
be
don't want a lot of water going, more water going into the wetland and and we don't want it to go change our hydrologic condition going in there. So I want it to go to the same rate.
correct.
But with the permeability down there and with the plantings, and the shrubbery, that should stop a lot of the flow going through there. But I was just concerned there was a concern brought up by, somebody, a resident of that swale, that there's more water and keeping that amount of water out if it was truly increasing in there, if we could do something with that.
Yeah, I would just comment that that's runoff from the neighbor's property. Should not be directed towards our property. So I don't really believe that's a true concern, that if anything, that surface water from the neighbor's property should not be infiltrating our property or affecting our site.
But you've just raised the property.
Well, they've got an elevated septic system there that's already raised quite a bit. So typically, stormwater from an abutting property shouldn't infiltrate my property per se. I don't expect any additional flow from our property at all because it is a flat site, with excellent perk rates. Again, it's a sandy base, several feet of sandy base.
And then one of the considerations that we might think about is requiring some type of riprap spreader at the end of that once it hits the wetland area. So it slows down the flow and spreads out the flow. So we don't have a channel going into the wetland. And that may help on some of the flow between that area too. So
I
it
think
looks
that's
like-
actually gonna create more issues. I mean, it really is minimal
Yeah.
slope there. I mean, I think we're sort of
Yeah,
addressing a non-existent problem.
It's tough with the topos here, on the plan, they stop, before it gets to the wetlands. So it's, shows a 202 to a 199, a 3-foot, variance, and I can't tell what the distance is, but it is a gentle slope.
Yes.
But I didn't know if we had to think about a conditions to, do anything with, additional riprap or spreader on that swale. If it's not much going through there, then it doesn't make any real concern. I haven't been out to the site for years now and during the rain or anything of that nature. I don't know if anybody else has seen it. Okay.
I'd like to see it during a storm or something, just to see how it goes. I don't know. Riprap might help. I don't know, just on the side, just to slow water down.
Yeah.
Um,
I really don't think there's
and-
much of a concern with water, to be totally frank. We've got an existing leach field, that the slope of the leach field drops down, and then we've got our site, which is elevated about 2.5 feet with sand. So, I mean, you've got an existing, raised septic bed, which is already sand, stone, and
Right.
fill. That's
Yeah.
gonna self-absorb any
It's just
material.
like two hills next to each other. Water's gonna go in the middle.
Right,
You
right.
know.
I mean, we're not
Yeah.
gonna create a retention area there.
Do you know when you're gonna have the final grade done?
Well, we haven't even started the project.
Yeah. We may try to condition it a bit, that once you get final grade, we hold back a condition that we may require
Sure.
additional, water flow mitigation measures, of riprap or spreader in that area.
Sure.
Once you get final grade, it's hard to tell. We don't know the grade, we don't know the soil types per se. But that would give us a condition to be
Yeah.
able to take a look at it,
It's just,
in
there's
a
lot of
final
different
condition.
Streams in there
Yeah.
that go into Fuller Swamp,
Hmm.
all along
Yeah,
5 and
comes
10.
right off of
We
Come
did-
Take a Ridge all the
Yeah,
way over.
it goes straight across it.
We did
Yeah.
4 deep holes,
Yeah,
and we didn't discover
Okay.
any high groundwater. It would have been noted on the
Yeah.
septic design, and you could
Yeah.
you could you could refer to the test pits on the septic design if you had a concern for high water table or underground streams, which there were none present when we did our testing.
Okay. Okay, those are kind of just the questions and the concern, and I wrote down the riprap one because some of your concern too, because we don't know the final grade and
Yeah.
what it's actually gonna
Yeah.
look like. We do have that 10-foot buffer out, so, we do have more, and most of the area, it's gonna be, grass.
Yes.
So, if you look at the whole, what's the, total size acres?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
if the-
1.37
It was like
acres.
a
There you
foot
go.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so you got an acre of grass in there in vegetation. Could take out the buildings and the garage and driveway. I mean, just a quick calculation in my head, so maybe off, but okay.
And again, we have added about 2 to 3 feet of sandy fill, which
Yeah.
has got an extremely high absorption rate. So we do anticipate that most surface water from the site will infiltrate the site itself.
Okay. So that might be a consideration of a order condition for, potential water control, type of issues in that swale. We'll word it better than that. I'm just writing it down
Sure.
right now. Yeah, once final grade is, determined. Yep, okay. Hard to do these things without, having all the final stuff right in front of you. Okay. Anything else from you?
I don't think so.
Any input from the public? Don't see any, hear any, anything additional from the commissioners? Okay, any thoughts on how you want to proceed with this, NOI? Relative to a motion?
You want to close the hearing before you vote, or you, or you
Yeah,
want
I'll
to close
say-
the hearing and deliberate and then vote?
Yeah, okay. And then and just for Bob, all the other standard Deerfield order conditions
Sure.
will apply, and we have many of them, so, okay. So no other comments from the commissioners, and I'll close the hearing. I'll take a motion to close the hearing.
Second?
Okay, take a vote to, on the motion on the table, close out the hearing on this NOI.
Yaron Domingos, aye.
Sean, you need to unmute.
John Libby, aye.
Kate Devlin, aye.
Pete Law, aye. So the hearing's closed, and now we'll take accept a motion to,
You can deliberate for a bit if you like.
yeah, yeah. Anybody want to deliberate? You can. I went through that, but, take a motion to, accept the NOI with, the various OOCs, specifically the one we talked about with, reserving our right to, impose additional water control, parameters in that swale, area as it enters the wetlands, depending on final grade and so forth. Tim, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, potential water control in addition to a spreader could be plantings,
Yeah.
potentially in the soil. So it's
Yeah,
something to
because we
think
got
about.
plantings up there where we could put some more. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. So, water controls with swale and plantings. Okay. So any other discussion? We can look for a motion. Anybody come up with a motion? I'm not good at motions.
I'll make a motion to accept the NOI with the order of standard Deerfield order of conditions, which would include the possibility of additional water control features to address the soil on the south side. That,
Conditions as discussed.
as discussed. Okay, that's even better. Conditions as discussed.
Yeah, no, you got Amy here to help us through all the protocols. We're
I'll
just
second.
volunteers. We don't know this stuff. Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion on the table has been seconded. Further discussion? Don't hear, don't see. I'll take a quick roll call vote to accept the motion on the table to accept the NOI with conditions.
Sean Libby, aye.
Darren Damaris, aye.
Kate Devlin, aye.
Pete Law, aye. That motion passes 4-0, and we'll get you that information over the next 2 or 3 weeks with the holidays. So,
Great.
and we'll have the conditions in there, and we can go, just be open that we may want to take a look at it down the road.
Thank you, board and commissioners.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very
Great
much.
night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good luck. Thanks for hanging in there with us tonight. It must be time bomb. So what? Stop. And we're tired to keep you waiting, man.
I'm doing well. Yourself?
All right. All right. So now we're going to continue the hearing for 0 Little Meadow Road NOI. This is a notice of intent filed by Jeff Galley for trustees of Old Deerfield for construction of a new dormitory, including utility and related infrastructure improvements on property at Little Meadow Road and Albany Road, identified in the assessor's record as map 61, lots 12 and 13. We have the engineer sitting in front of us, so we'll open it up to Andrew from Ty and Bond.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. Andrew White, a professional engineer registered in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, representing the trustees of Deerfield for this project. We submitted a supplemental NOI to you all. Now, that covered most of the drawing revisions that we had spoke to at the last hearing, but we had not yet submitted those drawings to you, as well as we have the new Mass DEP file number and had responded to Mark Stinson's comments.
If I could correct myself, I said I think we might have continued the hearing, but we have to open the hearing because we only had a discussion last time because we did not have the official Mass DEP number, which is 1420255.
Yeah, we did. We opened the hearing.
Did we actually open it? Okay.
Yeah, you just
I
have
thought we
to
just had a
reopen
discussion
the
only.
continued hearing.
I wanted to make sure I got my bases covered. I'm so far all over the place tonight. So, okay. Good.
So I'd be happy to present what we had already shown last month, or if you have the information, we could just deliberate on that. But
Yeah, I think unless the other commissioners want, we'd like to see the updates on the revised NOI and maybe go through your letter of November 14th to the commission, which answered the Mass DEP comments.
certainly.
Does that make sense, commissioners?
Mhm. You may share. Share with
There we go. And it's working. All right. So this is actually kind of starting at the back end of the drawing set with the landscape plan. One of the topics we discussed last month was the slope itself and replanting that after we take out some of those black locusts and other trees that are in there. We're proposing around 800 to 1,000 tubulings. So 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch, 5 inches deep, small little tubulings of shrubs. So that way we could see what takes and helps reestablish that slope.
So I was going to ask you about that. So it's just a variety of tubules to
Yep.
see which works?
So we have,
Yeah.
as I mentioned verbally last time, and I don't think this, I'll have to send you a new sheet. This table was on a no plot layer on the landscape architect's drawings. But it was verbally mentioned at the last meeting, the black chokeberry, the red twig dogwood, bush honeysuckle, winterberry, common nine bark, sumac, elderberry, and arrowwood viburnum. We're proposing to put these in about 10 to 15%. So yes, the idea is to have these and see what is what's thriving and what's surviving, and have these be in a mixed array under the guidance of the landscape architect, as noted on the plan that would be
That's the West Bank restoration plan that was on the back here.
correct.
Yeah. Okay. So it's going to go on that banking.
Yes, this entire light green shaded area here.
Yeah.
4 to 6 feet on center across that entire bank area.
Okay. Thank you.
Going back up to the plans that were resubmitted, we had the stormwater basins, and here we had the updated hydrodynamic separator off of Albany Road. Again, the storm lines are highlighted in blue. So this one to the south is the hydrodynamic separator that's being proposed right in the parking areas, before then continuing down to the chute, which is detailed on a separate page. Up to the north as well, we had the new 36-inch culvert that was being installed. And again, we are pulling back those outfalls further to Little Meadow Road. And then I'll show you on a separate page where we have details of those outfalls. So this is the outfall for in wetland restoration at the Little Meadow Road outfall. This is the northern one. What we're proposing for mitigation of wetland disturbance is not only are we pulling these outfalls back to the east, we're going to go in and remove all of the riprap that's there. If you've been out to the site, there is existing pipe is cascading out into the wetland itself, and there is a large amount of riprap that is encircling that whole area. So we'd be removing that, restoring it with wetland plants, and pulling back the outfalls, putting in the scour hole for the 36 and a riprap apron for the 18-inch pipe.
And both those outlets would be at surface level or
At surface
buried
level,
level a little bit. Yeah.
tucked into the hillside. So they would not
Good.
be,
And get rid of that waterfall.
get rid of the waterfall feature.
Yep.
And then for the southern outfall, that's down the corrugated metal pipe, half pipe that comes down the hill. This is installing the scour hole at the bottom of that apron, or bottom of that half pipe, so that there's a plunge pool for water to gather, and then an apron to disperse down to the wetland itself.
What, I had just a question on that one. 'Cause
Mhm.
It's amazing seeing that coming down the hill, that little half tube. Is that enough sizing, you think, for the riprap to maintain the water flow that comes down? And I don't know what the water flow is at its peak and volume, but it just seemed like a kind of a small area there at the bottom of that one. It comes down at a pretty good velocity, I would assume.
It does. We did size this. It's a 8 foot per second in the 10-year storm that is coming down. The existing is around 7 feet per second. So it is, while it's a larger amount of structures that are tying to it, it's not dramatically increasing the velocity.
Yeah.
And we did size that accordingly. The riprap is larger riprap around that 12 to 18-inch stone. It's embedded 18 inches deep. So even though it's footprint-wise is not, or it's 5 foot by 6 foot, the stone size itself is a larger size for that.
Yeah, okay. The whole area looks like a 18 by 15. Is that the right one? Or no, no, that's it.
This is, it's a 6x5.
Yeah.
With a 2x3.
Right, thanks.
Yeah, this is the northern one. That is a larger 15x18. The flow coming out of that 36-inch pipe is much larger. So while the corrugated metal half pipe from the previous one certainly looks like a much larger, and certainly has the steepness of the hillside, the contributing watershed to that outfall is not nearly as large as what's coming through the 36-inch culvert. So those sizings do reflect those hydraulic calculations. So that is the update to the plans that are in the NOI. The entire NOI has been, or the text was revised and sent in as well. Would you like to discuss the?
Just quick, going back to the tubules, taking down a lot of trees. I think it'll be in the OCs, but we're going to leave the stumps
Yes, that is correct. We're not
for
grubbing.
everything, or just on anything bigger than a certain diameter.
For trees, they're going to be left in place. So
Yeah,
I would
okay.
say even larger shrubs would be left in place if it's being cut. The idea is to not grub that
Yeah, right. Okay.
surface.
So we maintain the both the root patterns as well as the new tubules on the shrubs.
Correct.
We had talked about potential erosion controls at the bottom of the hill as well.
During a good point. We were looking at that. So during that work where you're taking down the trees and such, there's going to be some interruption of banking and soils and so forth. So we're considering a condition of running a line of erosion control at the base of the hill before it hits the swale.
Yeah, we would be agreeable to that.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for reminding me on that. Yep. Erosion control at base. During the, the tree removal section, and just leave it there for base of slope, and also stumps. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you had the letter back. DEP had 7 or 8 comments, I think. If everybody has read that, I don't see anything jump out at me. I think a lot of those questions were answered in this. On the first one, the impact, somebody proposed alterations. Was that an increase, decrease in?
So it wound up being an increase when we went to do the new culvert head walls and the scour pads. So we had to increase our
Agreed, yeah.
disturbance to better the situation.
And which one of these is an increase?
That's the stormwater and one in red. Yeah.
That's on there. Question 1, there's a table on the bottom.
Yes.
Which one was, I'm sorry, stormwater, the second line?
Yes, second line stormwater.
So it's 400,000, 3,000, 4,200 square feet or so, or linear feet, cubic feet. Okay. All right. So some increase of work in the area. But I would suggest that's an improvement of work from what the scour zones are now of getting those scour pads in place. Okay. Okay, yeah. Number 2, I had the question of the erosion controls at the bottom of the bank. We just talked about that. You fixed the project limit lines on your sheets.
Yes.
Yeah, it's I can only find one on the new sheets. Revised wetland data plot prepared for, this is question 3. I included the inland wetland replacement plan. And what was specifically on that? You said that was part of the November 13th submittal plan.
Yes, we had updated that in there, but I believe it was when assessing that vegetated strata that the numbers weren't quite right. So we had revised that tables. Chad, if you have any
Yeah, hi guys. Chad Raymer, wetland scientist. So some of those, when we went out and delineated a couple of those herbaceous viney species were included in the vine section, whereas they were supposed to be included in the herbaceous section. So we just flipped those species up into the herbaceous section, and it changed a couple of those dominant plant species around. It's still a hydrophytic vegetation within that wetland, so there's no real change there, as he mentioned in the comment. We just kind of moved some things around inside that plot.
Okay. All right, so I saw that, okay. Number 4, the stormwater management system and installation of substation, that seemed to be pretty straightforward. You did the soil studies. I looked at the soil and you got a lot of fill and then a lot of sand and gravel.
Yep. And
Yeah.
those are typical readings that we have all over campus.
Yeah, I bet, yeah. It's just built up on okay. Yeah, I don't see any other questions myself. They were answered. There were 6 questions from DEP. I just had a couple of questions I already asked, but if anybody else see anything that jumped out to them on the responses?
No.
Anything that you want to point out, Andrew, at all on this?
No, I think this was just a continuation of the conversation we had last month, and
Yeah.
More than happy to throw in the extra erosion controls at the toe of the slope.
Yeah.
And any other questions you have, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah. Appreciate you getting that done by the time we had this following the last meeting, and having the revised NOI is helpful. Okay. Anything for you, Sean?
Did you shake your head because we couldn't see you?
Yeah, no, nothing to add.
Yes, no. All right. So then I don't think we need any further information. Any other discussions from the commissioners? I'll go ahead and close this hearing and take a vote a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion on the table to close out the hearing for the NOI for 0 Little Meadow Road. Take a quick roll call vote to accept the motion. No,
No, to
we
close.
already did that. To close the hearing.
John Libby, aye.
Darren Damaris, aye.
Kate Devlin, aye.
Eli, I told all these guys up here, I said, you better start poking me in the elbows, 'cause I'm so exhausted tonight. It shows. Okay. And then if there are any other discussions, otherwise I accept the motion to accept the NOI as revised on November 13th, I believe the date was, with the additional conditions that we spoke about tonight.
Kate Devlin, I'll make a motion to accept the NOI as the NOI for 0 Little Meadow Road, with the conditions as discussed.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion on that motion? Good, motion on the table. Take a roll call vote to accept as a motion.
Kate Devlin.
John
aye.
Libby, aye.
Darren Damaris, aye.
Pete Law, aye. That passes 4-0. So we'll get back to you guys with the write-up and the additional conditions that we talked about, but appreciate you really coming back with all the issues addressed that we talked about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. I was just wondering if maybe Andrew wants to stick around when we discuss the COC for the NOI for the infrastructure.
It's planning on.
Yeah, I
Oh.
don't know if you were aware of it. Yeah, I can't remember what I
It's number 7.
shared. and-
Yeah, did we ever hear back anything definitive from Mark? I should ask him today.
I'm
You
sorry.
asked, you, did you ever hear back anything from Mark Stinson on your last question?
I did. He said it's because I had neglected to check off that it was complete. I didn't realize that saying, with conditions was not closing it out. So it is not officially closed out. And he said it was really up to you guys. But I think you read the comments that
Yeah,
you
we get
can't
comments
close out.
back.
I mean, I think maybe the thing to do is revisit it next spring.
Yeah, the comments was because it wasn't, we closed it out completely, but then we put conditions against it. So the comment back from DEP was we should have given you a partial closure with the conditions. Yet he said that we already took a vote on it, so we can't revise it per se, I don't think. But the conditions remain, and I guess we'll have to put our trust in you guys to make sure that
Well-
the area stays stable, and we'll be out there in the spring to check.
I think you can revisit because what I submitted, because I made the mistake of not saying that it's completely closed out. I think it does leave it open if you guys want to revisit to submit a partial or just wait until the spring when.
Yeah, so I never saw
make a
the I never saw his response back to what we could do one way or the other. So I know you asked a question, but I never saw back. So I guess the options are we could issue another one as a partial with the same conditions, or stay with the ones that we did last time as a complete with the conditions.
Is there any issue with this now having voted on an overlapping order of conditions? 'Cause if
I
you-
don't think so. Because that's why we did the closure.
I'm
But
gonna look
I
up the email because
Yeah.
I got the feeling that what was submitted is not acceptable. It's.
Oh, I didn't. I thought it was like, well, you
Yeah.
guys made your decision. So it was a decision made. So I read it differently, but that's why I was saying we already made the decision. Then we opened up the next hearing and just accepted that. So I was just going to say, it's like, we put our, maybe I made a mistake, but I put my trust in you guys to make sure it's in good condition come
Mhm.
the spring. And we'll be out there to take a look at it and then have to address it. If it's not there as via an enforcement order or some type of thing. But I must have misread it, but I never saw his response
So
back.
I will read my last exchange with Mark Stinson. I wrote, I didn't check complete, so technically this is not a complete certification. Can we ask the applicant to resubmit the RCOC in the spring for a complete COC, or should we just leave it alone and consider it done? I asked the applicant to hold off on recording until we get this figured out, and Mark's reply was, "That's up to you." So.
Yeah. In my opinion, it's maybe we made an error on closing that one out too quick or not doing it as a partial, but it's done. I think we've worked with these guys enough that it'll be taken care of with the conditions. I would just leave it. And like I said, if it doesn't work, we have another avenue via an enforcement order to remedy it, would be my read on it. And I'm not sure we want to go back and forth.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. Anybody, any other thoughts, commissioners?
That makes sense to me.
Okay. And I took it as a learning moment, so the next time I
For all.
won't make the mistake again, but, so I trust you guys.
We'll try not to come back with a request for closing out an order the same night we're trying to get a new one placed.
Yeah, that would help too. Yeah. Especially the day before I was out there, it was like, no. we had to scramble to get that stuff done, so.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you guys, appreciate it. We'll get that information out to you as soon as we can.
Great.
All right, a couple other things on the agenda this evening for the commissioners. We had a site visit when we were out there, Tim, on the 19th, at 89 Whately Road. This was a homeowner. His first name Sam. I can't tell you his last name. Sorry, but lives there at 89 Whately Road. They were the DEP was alerted that there may be activities in a wetland that were not permitted. They contacted us. We took an initial look a month or so ago, Tim and I, and we did see some small equipment in the back. Went back to DEP. They decided to go look at it themselves. That was Rob at DEP. He got back to me. I talked to him yesterday and basically said, could you, as town of Deerfield, take this one on as an enforcement action versus the DEP doing anything, because they didn't think it was all that big of a deal. So I said we could take a look at it. I got back to him that we would do that as long as the committee agrees. And we talked to the owner yesterday. We walked the site, and basically what we saw was it's one of those wetlands. It's a forested wetland on the side of a field. So at one point it was agricultural land and probably had a lot of agricultural exemptions to it. The farmer down there and the farmer over here has all the agricultural exemptions. He's in the middle of it. He was very, sorry he didn't know he didn't know it was even a wetland. It was a forested wetland. There was some indication of a roadway going out into the wetland area, but it was probably had been there for a long time, and there was some there was a few pieces of some equipment, but not like a what was out there, like a
On our,
could have taken pictures.
on our most recent visit,
Yeah,
all that was out there was a boat trailer
a boat trailer and a couple of
and
little
some
small
other
things.
scrap metal
Yeah.
things that had been left by the previous
So
owner.
the tractors had been removed. There was 2 piles of cut wood that's probably been cut within the last year or two, looking at the butts. And he's willing to remove those, remove them outside of the resource area completely. And he just wants to make it right, and was really apologetic and basically didn't want to get himself in trouble and would cooperate with whatever we wanted to do. So I would suggest we place an enforcement order to them, which we put together. Well, we can vote on it at our next meeting. But under the order, we'd apply that the property owner shall immediately cease and desist any activity in the buffer zone. So we told them maybe a cease and desist on that. I don't think we require any additional restoration plan, anything else that we're able to do, unless you guys feel that we should. And what I would just say is that order of cease and desist probably don't have to come to us for for an RDA or an NOI at this point. But we do a cease and desist with conditions to remove the couple of piles of wood slag and to remove the boat trailer from the resource area. And if you ever wanted to do any more work in there, to come to us to get an RDA that we could review of what he may or may want to do of using that area of his property that's within the wetlands. So that would be my suggestions. Take comments on it. I don't have anything to vote on tonight because we just got this done yesterday, day before. We'll have to fill out the form for next meeting, but that's kind of the intent. I just want to let everybody know. If you think we should need to go further, we can do that as well. But he was very, very cooperative.
I think
Um,
that it makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
It doesn't sound complicated. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was that one. Another thing that did not make it to the agenda, but I wanted to tell you guys about was the emergency cert for Hillside Road, the second certification we put together. We talked about it last time. But I believe when I looked at the notes, it was I was going to go back to Chief Pachorik and DPW and get some additional information, which we did. Tim's been out there several times with me. So we put together a new emergency cert, which we don't have in our packet. So we can't really vote on that until next time to ratify it.
Well, you signed it, so it's in force. It's a matter of ratifying it.
Okay, so we can ratify it tonight even if they don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I'm sorry, oh, you can ratify, yeah, or I could pull it up here and share it.
Well, if you can put it on the screen real quick.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. It's the next section between Hillside Road and Captain Lathrop, which we probably found another half a dozen obstructions in that area, plus one bend underneath a culvert, which needs to be fortified with some riprap. And we put a lot of conditions on it because I checked with DEP because they have an interest in this. There's a lot of conditions that have to be met, and they have copies of it. They have read it, and it's out there. And the second part of it is from Captain Lathrop down to North Main Street, which goes behind the farm there on North Main Street, and it goes across the culvert. I can't think of the guy's name. Sugarloaf Brook Farm. And that tributary comes down through there. So today, actually, right down by the farm, there was an old culvert that was caved in that was replaced. And there was two or three other obstructions removed in the stream. Very, very minimal in depth what we're allowing them to do. But it did open it up quite a bit. There was actually some really good flow going in there. And when I was there at 12:30, by the time at 12:30 when I left, everybody was working to help the contractor get his excavator unstuck from the wetlands that just sunk right in, right up to the top of the cabin. We got him out of there though without a whole lot of awful fuss, but it's quite a quite a quagmire back in there. So that part of it was done. Tomorrow we're meeting at 8 o'clock. If anybody else wants to join us, Tim and I with DPW, the contractor and chief, to look at that stretch between the middle of down below Hillside over to Captain Lathrop for what we need to do next. And then early next week, we'll bring in a little small mini excavator, small guy, to do one or two more locations just south of Captain Lathrop, where we can reach down into the stream from certain residences right there off their lawns. And it's like minimum. I mean, we're maybe taking a couple of yards of material out in each place. And now that material is getting taken to the transfer station. When it gets a little drier, we're trying to get it out of there within 2 weeks. That's part of the conditions. But Amy pulled that up. You can see all the conditions in there if you want to read through them.
Yeah, I was going to read, I think this is pretty much the same because we did vote on this and then now this is a revised version of what you voted on. And I think the difference starts at condition 5, or even that. At condition 7 is what we've added since the last time. The work approved in this certification shall not negatively impact the natural capacity of the stream. Reasonable efforts must be made during the repair activity to avoid adverse impacts to resource areas or their buffer zone. All staging areas and access points shall be minimized and limited to that necessary to allow the work with access to the site. Only 2 lateral access points will be allowed, one at the lower culvert, slightly southeast of the existing barn and the neighboring property where a limited amount of riprap is authorized to stabilize the side. You guys can maybe read this. I didn't realize there were so many. Are you guys comfortable reading for yourselves? Or shall I
would be,
read
but
it
I
into the
can't see it.
record? Okay.
So-
I can keep reading. Property with limited amount of riprap is authorized to stabilize the side of the stream bed, and 2, where a natural opening in the vegetation allows access to the stream bed approximately 50 to 75 feet north of access point 1. If additional movement is required, then it will be done as close to the stream bed as possible, moving in either a northerly or southerly direction. Best management practices shall be employed by the contractor to protect resource areas located adjacent to the proposed staging temporary dredge material stockpiling. Stockpiled areas shall be lined with appropriate erosion and sedimentation controls. Straw wattles are facing on the stream facing downhill side. To prevent mobilization, this stockpile area will be located close to Hillside Road. All stockpiled materials must be removed to a proper disposal site outside of any resource areas within 7 to 14 calendar days of placement. 11, refueling, servicing, and repair of motorized construction vehicles shall take place outside of the resource areas. Any release of fuel, motor oil, and other liquids shall be contained immediately, and materials, supplies to be used to contain the release shall be made available on site at all times. 12, all disturbed areas with exposed soil along the top of the bank of the stream along the entire length of the project work shall be stabilized within 72 hours with a fast-growing winter rye seed covered with straw for late fall winter vegetation. In the spring of 2026, the DPW is required to reseed and restraw these areas with a natural, non-invasive conservative seed mix. 13, in the event that the resource areas are unintentionally or maliciously altered as a result of the approved activity, the Deerfield Conservation Commission must be notified within 4 hours of the discovery of the alteration. In such an event, the Commission reserves the right to require appropriate mitigation. 14, the Conservation Commission reserves the right to conduct on-site inspections to evaluate compliance with these requirements. Representatives from the Conservation Commission must be present at the start of this project work and then periodically throughout. 15, upon abatement of the emergency designated by the public safety official, all work shall cease and the project site shall be adequately stabilized. Any work not related to the abatement of the designated emergency shall only proceed upon receipt of all necessary permits, licenses, and other approvals, including but not restricted to a Wetlands Protection Act order of conditions if applicable. 16, a copy of these orders of conditions must be forwarded to the Deerfield DPW and any contractor utilized for this work. All parties must review and agree to all orders as outlined above and will require acknowledgement by all parties via either submittal by mail or email of said understanding. The order shall be included with all construction-related documents. All contractors working at the site shall be made aware of the provisions contained within the order and adhere to all special conditions herein. At all times, the site foreman, supervisor, supervision engineer, or construction manager shall have a copy of the order at the site and shall direct compliance with the requirements of the order. The commission shall be notified by the applicant if the contractor changes during the life of the order and submit a letter to the commission outlining said changes. Email submission is acceptable.
Thank you, Amy.
Can you repeat that?
I was gonna, aren't you all impressed with how I write conditions like that, you know? Should have been a lawyer. No, most of them came from Deja at DEP, so I give her all the credit. I just cut and pasted. All right, so if you think you want to ratify it tonight, we can take we do need a motion to that before we vote?
Yeah, motion to ratify.
Okay, let's take a motion to ratify if everybody's okay with it.
Kate Devlin, I'll make a motion to ratify the emergency certification for Hillside. Do I need a-
Second?
Do I need an address?
There isn't really.
We know what we're,
Hillside culvert, yeah.
Hillside Culver.
All right. I don't see any other comments. Hear any comments? Take a roll call vote to accept the motion.
John Libby, aye.
Darren Damaris, aye.
Kate Devlin, aye.
Pete Law, aye. All right, good. So we got that one ratified. We can put that one. Hopefully the work will be done next week, and many thanks to Tim. He's been out 7:30 this morning and throughout the morning, and then be back out there today first thing tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, and probably again next week. So it's really having a conservation agent here in town is a really helpful thing. Site visits completed in November. Town of Deerfield on 11/3 I did. And that was with the Franklin County Conservation District, discussing some potential pilot work here. 11/10, Town of Deerfield, was the superintendent at DPW regarding the elementary school project. On the 19th was at 89 Whately Road with Tim on the enforcement order that we discussed. And today was Town of Deerfield on the Hillside Road emergency cert. And as of tomorrow, we'll be back there again. So we'll have some more meetings there. We have no more public, so we don't have any public comments. I did one item that popped up that I was asked to check with, and this is directed to Sean and Kate. Have you been able to share your slides with Sarah at Treehouse? Have you been able to get through?
I saw the email. I've been slammed with work this week, so I didn't get to it, but I will.
Okay. It's a new contact.
Yeah,
This is
means
Allison.
it gives Allison
She
time.
seems to
Yeah.
be like open to getting this thing done.
Yeah,
So,
great. Yeah.
Sean, you have any chance?
And Sean, you-
Your wife was able to grab my slides as the state has disavowed my use of Google Drive.
Okay, yeah.
So she was able to capture one slide at a high resolution and the other slide at a fairly low resolution, but that can probably be redone.
Okay. Very good. And Kate will be sometime this week, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that one is new person at Treehouse, but moving along. Being a Treehouse, I haven't heard anything on that project. The emergency access road, no.
Yeah, I don't know where they are with that.
Okay.
We should have asked Andrew White.
Yeah, I know. Do we have any mail? There was no mail in the packet. No. Okay. Nothing else that comes up that the commissioners want to talk about? Upcoming meeting will be December 18th at 6 p.m. start. That's this one, right? Somebody else moved the start date, but this one's at 6 p.m. Okay. Other than that, we take a motion to adjourn. It's not even 9 o'clock. Wow.
Kate Devlin, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:20 p.m.
Somebody be jumping on that one.
Sorry, I was typing.
Darren Damaris, I'll second.
Okay. Motion on the table to adjourn. I'll take a roll call vote.
John Libby, aye.
Kate
Yep.
Devlin, aye.
Darren Damaris, aye.
Pila, aye. So we can wrap it up.